So today's episode is all about helping your kid answer a pretty deceptively simple question. And I think it's a critical question to be asking them for them to have answers to all as they grow up. And this question typically gets distorted by us, the parents. And what I don't want to do is add pressure that distracts my kid. I don't want to be a part of the process that actually harms them from finding clarity. And the question is this: what are you going to do next? What's your plan? And what I mean is we're not going to do this in a pressured kind of productivity driven way with a lot of anxiety and stress, but in a thoughtful, purposeful, confidence building way. Now, when I was a kid, every single year, my teachers would say the same things on my report cards. Something to the effect of Scott's a good student. Scott's has a lot of capacity, but he gets easily distracted. He spends a lot of time daydreaming, too much time daydreaming. I remember the O's or S's. I'd always get like, his kind of like classroom behavior was satisfactory because he was like always distracted. And they weren't wrong. I was constantly being kind of pulled by my imagination, thinking about being the hero on the baseball field, leading troops into battle, wooing some girl, or pulling off some epic win. What I didn't know back then, that my daydreaming was actually a part of a process that's really healthy, about using my imagination and having a vision for the kind of person that I wanted to become. But I didn't learn how to cultivate that imagination, those daydreams, into clarity, into planning. And that's what I want to get into in this episode. So many kids have ideas, dreams, even small kind of instincts, gut instincts about what they want, but they don't get asked or taught how to develop those ideas into plans, to do something with it. Instead, I think we unintentionally train them to wait for things to unfold, to stay passive, and maybe even to overthink it or to try to manage it. What are you going to do next isn't just about making a to-do list. It's about finding direction, getting clarity. It teaches kids that they are active participants in their own future. If they don't get asked this question, and if they don't get answers to this question, they stay stuck in maybe reflection mode, or they lose momentum, or maybe they get stuck in procrastination or perfectionism. They start to believe and anticipate that purpose and direction is something that kind of unfolds. You just kind of wait for it. And unfortunately, so many of them wait for like permission or wait for adults to guide them. And it's like kind of too late. Purpose and finding it isn't about one moment for most people. I'm sure there's someone out there that had a moment where they thought, oh, that's why I'm here. That's what's going to organize my entire life. Rather, most people would say, those people who find purpose and live in a purposeful life would say that it's a series of small, intentional next steps. It's by continually coming back to this question, what are you going to do next? It's about a mindset, an orientation towards action where you are the central figure. This is grounded in the science of hope. We've done several episodes about that in the past, written quite a bit about it. Cultivating a mindset, a thinking process where hope is at the center of it, means that for a kid, the question always comes back with some pressure to them. Well, what's next and what are you going to do? And research shows that kids who have a higher degree of hope, who have a direction of where they're going and recognize that they have the capacity to make moves, do better in every area of life, academically, socially, emotionally, mentally, career-wise. This is one of the most important skills to teach, and it comes and starts with asking this question. So what are you going to do next? This question builds ownership, builds confidence, and helps young persons stay connected to a central part of what drives them, their values, their motivation, the kinds of person they want to be. And when a kid can name their purpose and name their next steps, then the fog starts to lift for them. That's when things get really interesting. So how do you do this? For parents and adults involved in kids' lives, it starts with asking the question, And there's other variations of this question that are open-ended and put the burden where it belongs, on them. So, oh, that's an awesome idea. What do you want to do with that next? What's the next step then? To hear a teenager say, I want to, you might ask them normally at this time of year, what are you going to do this summer? Are you going to work? What's the kind of, and then you hear a kid say, yeah, I want to work at, let's say XYZ. I want to work at this store. Oh, that's awesome. So what's the next step? What are you going to do next to get that job? And then, okay, now it's putting the burden and the ownership back on them to think through how to solve that problem. So asking open-ended questions and versions of that main question are really helpful. It's also helpful to guide them to break those next steps into smaller steps. Okay, so do you know anybody who works there? Do you know anybody who knows somebody who works there? Have you been in that store? Have you spent, I don't know, even 5 or 10 minutes kind of getting a feel for who's in charge and what employees do? Have you thought about asking an employee about if they like their job? So giving them ideas to break it into smaller steps. Again, then you're giving them options, and then the question comes back around to, so what are you going to do next? We also want to celebrate movement, progress, action, even if it's small. I'm so proud of you for moving forward. I know that takes courage, that takes guts. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable to do those sorts of things. And you've never done this before. I want to help validate and name that this is difficult. And it's also a demonstration that they are moving forward. And then finally, maybe the most important thing is to share our own stories. So much about these critical questions comes back to us modeling the moments and experiences that we've had as we've navigated our own answers to these questions. So ultimately, I don't think your kid needs a perfect plan, a life map, although we might be looking for that. We might feel a lot of security and safety if they could. Instead, they need both permission and some pressure, healthy pressure, to start imagining and thinking about the next steps. So this question, what are you going to do next? What's next for you? And to align what's next to these bigger things that matter to them. I know it's important that you earn money this summer. I know it's important because that money comes with so much more freedom. That money comes with so much more independence. You get to afford more things that are fun for you, that you get to do with your friends. You get to invest your money and do things with your money that you really enjoy. So that's the end goal. And then it comes back to, so what are you going to do next? And then you're available, of course, to coach, but not to direct. You're there to give feedback, but not to kind of give them orders unless they ask. And let me know if I can help you figure out what the next steps are, because I know how important that is to you. As we are walking alongside them, being curious about their lives, them being in charge of their lives, that's a different perspective than us managing their lives for them like we used to do when they were younger. Here's the summer camp you're going to. Here's the trip we're going on. Here's the play dates you're going to have. Here's what you're going to eat. Here's what you're going to wake up. Like that transition over the course of adolescence is so critical. You have a full day ahead of you. What are you going to do? What's important to you, and what are you going to do? Those kinds of questions ultimately, hopefully, become their own inner voice in a healthy way. It's my life. It's my story. How do I navigate through this in such a way so that they can shrink these steps and that they can focus on the effort rather than the big outcomes? So we don't want to overfunction. We don't want to overpressure. We don't want to overreact if they don't move or make a misstep. And if we can make the next step about our comfort, our timeline, or our standards, we're robbing them of their potential and opportunity to growth. So instead, we want to celebrate their steps, ask them a bunch of questions, and cheer along the way. Back soon with another episode.